In this video, I'm going to try to answer a question. What camera is the right one for you? The Sony ZV-E1 content creator camera or the Sony A7 IV? Both are sub $2,000 cameras, both are full frame, and both are built for somewhat overlapping audiences, kind of like crypto and bankruptcy. The Sony ZV-E1 is a camera that came out early 2023 and the Sony A7 IV late 2021. A long time in tech years, but only a year and a half in difference. From Sony's marketing, the ZV-E1 caters to the self-absorbed vlogging market, and the Sony A7 IV to professional hybrid shooters, which range from self-absorbed vloggers to news agencies to wedding specialists. However, we're going to deep dive into each camera and try to define which is the better one for you. Advantages for the ZV-E1 is the price, $200 less. That savings is good for a whopping 24 eggs. Video sensor from the A7S III, FX3, FX6, 4K 120 and 1080 240. The 4K 120 and 1080 240 update is going to be free in some regions and paid in others. 3 capsule mic, tally light, lighter, and it's so much lighter that using the camera won't throw out your back. It has a swipe menu, AI focus, AI auto framing. It has product showcase, background defocus, cinema, vlog, baked-in LUTs, time-lapse video, seamless clear image zoom. Having the ability to effectively do a 1.5 crop and retain all of the AF, I see this feature being extremely appealing. 27 watts power delivery, that should be enough to power the camera and charge it at the same time. Advantages for the A7 IV, it has a 33 megapixel sensor, it has a mechanical shutter, you can do 10 frames per second, it has anti-flicker, it can do flash photography at reasonable shutter speeds. It can take photos. More robust body, it has an EVF, electronic viewfinder, it has dual card slots, one of them type A. It has buttons, more of them. It has more dials. It has a joystick, a grip. It has potential for battery grip and has full HDMI. And lastly, well, it does cropped 4K 60, but it also does cropped regular video. That means you can shoot regular in full frame and then a crop for every other frame rate as well, making it dual use. Time for the similarities of the ZV-E1 and A7 IV. Both produce 10-bit 422 video, unlimited recording, assist tools like focus breathing compensation and focus map. These are Bionz XR based cameras with modern menus. Both have plenty of codecs in H.264, H.265, but for some unknown reason, H.265 and 4K 30 do not exist simultaneously. And the Z battery, which is rated nearly 600 shots, and they are both dust and moisture resistant. Let's have a breakdown of the resolution, 33 versus 12 megapixels. The A7 IV has considerably more pixels. However, that comes with the penalty of comparatively poor rolling shutter. And this can be an especially big problem if you're a tweaking millennial. When looking at what the A7 IV can do, it's vastly superior in stills, and it also happens to do video quite well. And it would be nice if it could do all the trickery of the ZV-E1 can do. At the end of the day, if your output is video, then 4K is enough, and that's where the ZV-E1 shines, and it does it extremely well. Drawbacks for both cameras. The lack of waveforms means you have to expose with other means like zebras and exposure compensation or just manual settings. The lack of shutter angle, which can feel like a gut punch for video users. The firmware, there's a good chance you're going to be stuck with what you have. Features down the line will be an afterthought. I'm sure there's going to be fixes and whatnot. More on that later. Both cameras can overheat. I've taken the A7 IV for 3 hours with 4K 60. Some people have made it overheat in less. With the ZV-E1, it's rated for 30 minutes at 4K 60, and that's 4K 60p, not 24, not 30. So if you're filming at 24 or 30, expect much longer run times. Is that an issue? Probably not. So what is the case to buy the ZV-E1? Well, the most obvious reason is that you are a content creator. You aspire to be one. You love creating video for TikTok, Reels, Facebook, or YouTube. You travel and focus on travel videos. You're often in front of the camera, and occasionally you have to operate from behind or by yourself. You want things done fast and efficient. You're familiar with your iPhone, and transitioning to a touch-based camera is comfortable for you. In other words, you're not a middle-aged man who is in the process of losing their hair. You want the most amount of automation you can get. You're not afraid of embracing technology. Imagine if there were no early adopters of solar and wind. How would we have progressed as a society? And you value what you see as what you get very high, meaning that what you see on the back of the camera is going to be what you're going to get when you're done. It's not going to have to get color graded or corrected. When you play it back on the back of the camera, what you see there is going into your computer, and then you're done. Whether it's time lapses, stabilization, or auto framing, no need for assembly, catalyst browse, or keyframes. So what's the case for the A7 IV? Well, you need reliability of full HDMI. You need the redundancy of dual cards. You want to do stills. You want to be able to take professional strobe shots. You want to feel a full professional camera. The A7 IV is the true professional camera. It can take photos. It can do video at a very high level. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles, and it might never. Look, maybe all you want is the basics that can fulfill all your needs all on one plate. Kind of like pizza. So which one should you buy? Well, let's look at the price. There's a $200 difference. That's like 10%. If that's a deal breaker for you, stick with the ZV-E1. However, since the A7 IV has been on the market for a while, it's matured a bit. There's a good chance that you could catch it on sale much sooner than the ZV-E1. There's a good chance that you could catch it on the used market for considerably less than the ZV-E1. People might be switching to the ZV-E1 as we speak right now and dropping it in volume, so you can find one that's working in your favor. Are you comfortable giving up the EVF, that grip, that joystick, the dials, the buttons, and slightly better heat properties? You may find out you like the robust nature of the A7 IV over the ZV-E1. It has 6 mount screws compared to 4. It can handle much more weight. You might find out that it's just too painful to give up dual cards and HDMI. On the flip side, you've never had an SD card actually fail because it's kind of rare. Oftentimes you're doing a product showcase, you have the item, you can afford to do retake. Content creators are good at improvising. My wife is a content creator, and when there's not enough material to work with, it's not totally out of the question for her to work towards completion by faking it. She ain't gonna lose sleep over it. Bruh. Some people have different types of work, like weddings, corporate, performance, and if that's going to produce a good sum of money for you, it might not be worth the risk. But if you're at a second cousin's third removed child's wedding and losing footage isn't a big deal, have fun because your risk of losing footage is considerably low. Let's talk about AI focus and real-time tracking. Real-time tracking does everything that AI focus can do. However, it's not the same thing. AI focus is Sony being a marketer and using terminology that is going to be trigger happy. And it's essentially real-time tracking 2.0 with a dedicated chip with improved processing power and newer algorithms. The advantages of the ZV-E1 are hard to overlook. It's extremely lightweight, 500 grams. That's 150 grams less than the Sony A7 IV. And when you're holding it in your hand, you can definitely feel that amount. Nobody wants to carry that extra burden. Of course, I unknowingly did the day I got married. As for stills, as much as you really want, the ZV-E1 simply not built for stills. And I'd argue that Sony went a little too far disabling the stills features. I'd gladly pay a few hundred more if it had that half shutter found in the A7C. And it's a bit baffling that they went that direction because the closest competitor, well, closest camera they have to that is the ZV-E10, and that does 11 frames per second. It's a bit counterintuitive for the stills section to have that toggle on the front that does stills, video, S&Q when the stills can't really do stills very well at all. The camera does 14-bit RAW, and at the 14-bit RAW, the rolling shutter speed is not the same as when it's doing video at 10-bit. It happens to be like only a fraction of it, and the flash sync is at 130, so that kind of tells you that if you're using it for stills, there's going to be skewing from any sort of action. People walking, people hand-holding, your handshake might be the one causing the skew. And LED banding, I mean, if you have all these fluorescent or LED lights, there's a chance that it's going to be banding. I mean, if you are going to focus on video and only video, that's fine. It's going to do great. And for those video shooters, I know you guys have a trick up your sleeve, and I do this all the time, and it's frame grab. So that's the only way that you're going to get relatively high rolling shutter performance and video at the same time, is that you take video and you use the feature in camera to extract the stills. When it comes to the firmware, well, the alpha camera has been historically ignored for the past few years, and Alpha 7 is an alpha camera. The ZV-E1, well, it's not an alpha, but the ZV is a tier below the alphas, and what you get with the ZV is that you get a lot of gimmicks, and this happens with all manufacturers, and even the RX 100 series way back then, you know that they had stabilization beyond active stabilization before. They had, it was a dynamic, or it wasn't dynamic, but it was like intelligent active stabilization. There you go. So what that means is that they try out these new features on slightly lower budget cameras, and these new features, they just never make it to the professional realm of cameras. So the ZV-E1, it has a lot of gimmicky features, okay? It has the for menu where you have brightness adjustment, warm, cold adjustment. I mean, that's just white balance and exposure compensation, and the focus on the background, okay, aperture priority. But those gimmicks make it a lot more faster, okay, because when you're using product showcase, it seems like a simple thing, but it's more than that. You have wide area AF, but it's narrow to the center. So you change to center zone AF, and then you change it so that face detect is turned off. And another item you have to change is that now you're doing transition speed and focus lock to be faster. So that could be up to 3 or 4 settings you're changing, but with Product Showcase, you just turn that feature on and you're ready to go, and you turn it off and all the settings go back to where they were before. So it's that quickness that you're working with that really helps you move along quickly. It really helps you produce quickly and have your output ready for you to go. Same thing with the baked-in LUTs. And the baked-in LUTs and Product Showcase could be moved to the A7 IV. I just don't see it happening because of the firmware situation you're in, and that's okay for most people that are using that type of camera. A lot of them are firmware updates, and they likely will not come to the A7 Mark IV. With the A7 IV, you're getting a bona fide professional camera. It can do stills well, it can do video well. Downsampled from 7K in full frame, and another downsampled 4K in crop mode gives the A7 IV an advantage that the ZV-E1 just cannot match. It's just, it doesn't have all of the gimmicks that the ZV-E1 has, and those gimmicks, they can come in nice if you're using them. Brief history lesson. IAF used to be considered a gimmick until it wasn't. At the end of the day, I do feel that the ZV-E1 has boxed in a little bit too much. I think some people would be okay without an EVF if there was, say, a better screen. And they'd be okay without the mechanical shutter if it had faster rolling shutter. Heath happens to be 10-bit imagery, and if you could record in that mode alone at 10 milliseconds, that would take care of a lot of rolling shutter issues. I'd rather have a loss of bit depth than skewing and banding, but those two items, they're going to be hard to overlook for a lot of folks. It is what it is. So in that scenario, the A7 IV might be the better fit for you. Anyhow, that's all I got for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share. See you in the next one. Take care.